Scrambled Egg Super by Dr. Seuss. I don't like to brag and I don't like to boast, said Peter T. Hooper. But speaking of toast, I'm speaking of kitchens and ketchup and cake and kettles and stoves, the stuff people bake. Well, I don't like to brag, but I'm telling you, Liz, that speaking of cooks, I'm the best that there is. Why, only last Tuesday when Mother was out, I really cooked something worth talking about. You see, I was sitting here resting my legs, and I happened to pick up a couple of eggs. I sort of got thinking, it's sort of a shame that scrambled eggs always just taste the same. And that's because ever since goodness knows when, they've always come from the eggs of a hen. Just plain common hen. What a dumb thing to use when all of the other fine eggs you could choose. So I decided that just for a change, I'd scramble a new kind of egg on the range. Some fancy eggs that no other cook cooks, like eggs of the ruffled neck salamagook. A salamagooks say they should be good, so I went out and found some as quick as I could. And while I was lugging them back to the house, I happened to notice a tizzle-top grouse in a tree down the street, and I knew from her looks that her egg and the eggs of the salamagooks ought to mix well, ought to taste simply super when scrambled together by Peter T. Hooper. So I took those eggs home and I frizzled them up, and I added some sugar, 2/3 of a cup, and a small pinch of pepper, and also a pound of horseradish sauce that was sitting around, and some nuts, and I tasted the stuff, and it tasted quite fine, but not quite fine enough. To make the best scramble that's ever been made, a cook has to hook the best eggs ever laid. So I drove to the country quite far out, and I said the birds that were flitting about. I looked with great care at mop-noodled finch. I looked at the beagle-beaked, bald-headed grinch. And I also looked at the shade-roosting quail, who was roosting under a last-lax tail. And I looked at a spritz and a fennel-winged jay, but I didn't stop. I kept right on my way, 'cause they didn't have eggs. They weren't laying that day. Then suddenly, boy, up that hill a short space, birds, they were laying all over the place. Great happy families with uncles and cousins all laying fine eggs, strictly fresh eggs by the dozen. Why, I'd have a scramble more super than super. Scrambled eggs, super de duper de booper, special deluxe, a la Peter T. Hooper. I picked out the eggs in the most careful way, and only picked those that I knew were grade A. I only took eggs from the very best fowls, so I didn't take eggs from the twiddler owls, because I knew they're eggs of those fellows who twiddle, taste sort of like dust from inside a bass fiddle. I went for the kind that were mellow and sweet. Of the world's sweetest eggs are the eggs of the queet, which is due to those very sweet trout that they eat. And those trout, well, they're sweet because they only eat wogs, and wogs, after all, are the world's sweetest frogs. And the reason they're sweet whenever they lunch is they always world's sweetest bees that they munch. And the reason no bees can be sweeter than these, they only eat blossoms off of beetles' nut trees. And those bees' nut blossoms are sweeter than sweet, and that's why I nabbed several eggs from the queet. I passed up the eggs of a bird called a strudel, who's sort of a stork with the fur like a poodle, for they say the eggs of this kind of stork are gooey like glue that stick to your fork, and the yolks of the eggs, I'm told, taste like fleece. Well, the whites taste like very old bicycle grease. The places that I hiked to, the roads that I rambled, to find the best eggs that have ever been scrambled. I hunted new birds along wild tangled trails, through gullies and gulches, down dingles and dales. I wriggled my way and I crawled at a creep, through a forest of ferns that was 40 miles deep. I must have thought the brush till I found a fine quigger, whose eggs are as big as a pinhead, no bigger. And then I went for the eggs of the long-headed quong. Now this quong, she's built just a little bit wrong. Her legs are so terribly, terribly long that she has to lay eggs 20 feet in the air, and they drop with a plop to the ground from up there. So unless you can catch them before the eggs crash, you haven't got eggs. You've got long-legger hash. Eggs I collected 302, but I needed still more, and I suddenly knew the job was too big for one fellow to do, so I telegraphed north to my friends near Fazol, which is 10 miles or so just beyond the North Pole, and that all of them jumped in their catmacide, which is sort of a boat made from a sea leopard's hide, and which they sailed out to sea to look for grice, which is a sort of bird which lay eggs on the ice, which they grab with a tool which is known as a squitch, because those eggs are too cold to be touched without which. And while they were sending those eggs, I got word of a bird that's almost unheard of. It's hard to believe, but this bird called the felf lays eggs that are 3 times as big as itself. How the felf ever learned such a difficult trick, I never found out, but I found that egg quick and managed to get it down out of the nest and home to the kitchen, along with the rest. But I didn't stop there, because I knew of some ducks by the name of the single-file Zimmerzan zucks, who stroll single-file through the mountains of Zums, quite oddly enough, with their eggs on their thumbs. And some fellows in Zums who I happen to know just happened to catch 1,000 or so. And they wrapped up the eggs, and they mailed them by air, marked specially delivery, handle with care. I needed more helpers, and so, for instance, I called up a fellow named Ali long distance, and Ali, as soon as he hung up the phone, picked up a small basket and started alone to climb the steep crags of the jags of Mount Struku to fetch me the egg of the Mount Struku cuckoo. Now, this Mount Struku cuckoo are rather small gals. But these Mount Struku cuckoos have a lot of big pals. They dive from the skies with wild cracking shrieks, and they jabbed at his legs and they stabbed at his cheeks with their yammering, clamoring, hammering beaks. But Ali, brave Ali, he found his way through. He sent me that egg, as I knew he would do, for my scrambled egg super D duper D booper special deluxe a la Peter T. Hooper. And meanwhile, of course, I was keeping real busy collecting the eggs of the three eyelash tizzy. They're quite hard to reach, so I wrote on top of a hamaka schnimika snacknika schnap. And I found a great flock of southwest-facing cranes, and I guess they got something wrong with their brains. For this kind of crane, when she's guarding a nest, always stands facing precisely southwest. So to get those eggs wasn't hard in the least. I came from behind, from precisely northeast. I captured the eggs of the grickle gracchus, who lays them up high in a prickly cactus. Then I went from some ziffs that's exactly like zuffs, but the ziffs lives on cliffs and the zuffs lives on bluffs. And seeing how bluffs are exactly like cliffs, it's mighty hard telling the zuffs from the ziffs. But I know that the eggs I got from the bluffs, it wasn't a ziffs from the cliffs, was a zuffs. Now I needed the egg of a moth-watching snuff, who's a bird who's so big she scares people to death. And this awfully big bird, well, the reason they name her the moth-watching snuff is because that's how they tame her. She likes watching moths, sort of quiets her mind, and while she's watching, you sneak up behind and you yank out her egg. So I got one, of course, with the help of some friends and a very fast horse. If you want to get eggs, you can't buy at a store. You have to do some things never thought of before. Why, to get the egg of one very small dwarf, you have to pry all of one mountaintop off. Then I heard of some birds who lay eggs, if you please, that taste like the air in the whole of Swiss cheese. And they live in the big Zanzibar trees. So I ordered a treeful. The job was immense, but I needed those eggs. Ah, I said, hang the expense. I still needed one more, and I saved it for last, the egg of the frightful bombastic aghast. And that bird is so mean that this bird is so fast that I had to escape on a jilly-jack-jast. A fleet-footed beast who can run like a deer, but looks sort of different. You steer him by ear. And all through with the searching, all through with the looking, that I had all I needed, and now for the cooking. I rushed to the kitchen, the place where I'd stacked them. I rolled up my sleeves, and I packed them and cracked them. And I shucked them and chucked them in 99 pans. Then I mixed in some beans. I used 55 cans. And I mixed in some ginger, 9 prunes, and 3 figs, and parsley, quite sparsely, just 22 sprigs. And I added 6 cinnamon sticks and a clove, and my scrambled eggs were ready to go on the stove. And you know how they tasted? They tasted just like, well, they taste exactly just like the scrambled egg super-de-duper-de-booper special deluxe a la Peter T. Hooper.